Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Got a lot to break down today. A lot of stuff actually pertaining to big men in the NBA. But before we dive into it, please do make sure you subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. We're on the drive for 10,000 subscribers. We're almost there. So if you haven't done so yet, make sure you do hit that subscribe button and don't forget to turn on notifications as well. Keith, we can't wait on this any longer. The big news that we have to get into, Taco Fall has a home. For some reason, it's the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah, that's
Why?
the part that doesn't make sense. And that is clearly the big news of the day. But guys, buckle up. This is probably going to be, what, 2-3 hour long episode
Yeah.
where we break down Taco's fit in Cleveland. I assume they brought him in to run point guard alongside Mobley and Markkinen and Jared Allen. And they got to have another big guy floating around there
Kevin
somewhere.
Love, throw him out there, right?
Oh, Kevin Love. There it is.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Wheel him out.
Yeah, Kevin Love probably play the 3, Markkinen play the 2, point Taco. Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, since we're talking about it, I don't get it. I don't understand it. I hope he makes the team. I wish Taco nothing but the best. He is one of my favorite people I've covered, both at UCF, down the road from me here in Orlando, as well as with the Celtics. So I hope he makes it. But my guess is this is probably a camp thing, and then he'll be playing for the. I don't even know if they're still in Canton. They might not be, but the charge of the Cavs G League team. But real news involves some other big men and the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah.
The rich get richer. Paul Millsap. We've been waiting for this one for him to come off the board for a little bit, and he's going to the Nets. And we know for certain it's a 1-year veteran minimum contract, so he'll be on the cap sheet for about 1.7 million. He'll make about 2.6 or so, but that's where he's headed because that's all the Nets had to offer. They don't have anything else that they could give him beyond the veteran minimum.
Yeah, I mean, we had heard a number of contending teams were interested in him. The Golden State Warriors was one of them. The Bulls tried to get into the mix to grab him if they could, but ultimately he decided to go to the Nets. And now you've got a combination of Millsap, Blake Griffin. You've got some size there, and I think this just adds more fuel to the fire behind the whole DeAndre Jordan potentially getting bought out story that we were covering. So that seems even more likely. And then when that gets almost immediately followed up by LaMarcus Aldridge, has been cleared and is leaning towards returning to the Brooklyn Nets. That says, yeah, DeAndre Jordan probably on his way out of town. But I guess before we even get too deep into all of that stuff, the most important piece to this is how awesome is it that Aldridge can come back? That was gut-wrenching when it looked like his career was over. So happy. I don't care what team he winds up going to. It's amazing that he's able to come back and get on the floor again.
Yeah, I will openly admit I'm slightly terrified. And I hope that he is, fine. I will forever be scarred of being a teenager and hearing Reggie Lewis has been cleared to resume practicing, and shortly thereafter he passed away. So hopefully everything is good with Aldridge, and hopefully everybody's going to be really smart about this. And nothing but the best. And assuming that is all good, 100%. We always want guys to be able to end their career on their terms. You don't want anybody to have it taken away from them before they're ready to. I know some people don't like the idea that he's with the Nets and all those kind of things, but whatever. It is what it is. And he actually was pretty good. He only played 5 games for the Nets, but 12.8 points, 4.8 rebounds, 2.2 blocks. The blocks is probably the least real of that. That's not necessarily what he does, but now they've got kind of a 4 big rotation of him and Griffin and Millsap and Nick Claxton there. Jordan, 100% he's going to be gone. My guess is they're just working on whatever the number will be before he goes, and then they're going to have to waive somebody else as well. My guess is that'll probably be Alize Johnson, who's on a non-guaranteed contract, and that'll be the finalization of the Nets roster there. And it's a whole lot of veteran guys, a couple young guys, and we'll see what their depth, ultimately is able to do. But that team is to the point now where if they don't make the finals or maybe even win the finals, you got to start looking at it as a disappointing season.
Oh, absolutely. I think they're well past that point. It is championship or bust. I think anything less than
Yep.
winning a championship is a disappointment for them because they have stacked up so much talent on this squad. You look, I mean, even their big rotation, Millsap, Aldridge, potentially, right? Griffin, this is going to be incredible. And Claxton, I mean, is he might be the most able-bodied of the group. Certainly has younger legs there,
Sure.
but all of these guys can come in and make an impact in the playoffs. And then, of course, you've got your big three with James Harden and Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, added Patty Mills. Like they've got talent for days. I didn't even mention Joe Harris yet, who's one of the best shooters in the NBA. So this is going to be a very exciting next Nets team to watch, and they should be really, really good.
Be cautious of buying Nets tickets is my advice, because if they're on either end of a back to back, you might not see some of the
That's
guys you
true.
think you're looking for. I would really look heavily at the schedule first and see, are they on a third game in 4 nights or something like that, because they have the depth to liberally rest guys, and much like, and this is by no means a criticism, but much like the Lakers, they don't care about winning 60 plus regular
No.
season games. That doesn't mean a thing for them. Get to the playoffs, ideally have home court advantages to make it a little easier on yourself, but they're not going to push overly hard. And if anybody's feeling, if someone wakes up with the sniffles or a slightly sore hamstring, they're not playing because they just don't need to. They and for the Nets especially, I mean the Lakers too, but their season had kind of already fallen apart due to injury. But the Nets learned in the playoffs, if you're not healthy and ready to go late, that they might be thinking still that they missed out on a finals appearance because they had a couple guys go down. So
Oh, and I
yeah,
think that's
I
fair.
would just be cautious.
I think it's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
fair for them to look at this. And I thought, based on the entire season, I thought the Nets, when they had at least two of their stars in the playoffs, were playing the highest level basketball we saw of anybody all season. So I think
Yeah,
it's
I think
very,
that's
very
fair.
reasonable for them to look at last year's playoffs, which was just, a few months ago here. Not even, to look at these last playoffs and
Yeah,
say,
yeah, a couple
it's
months
amazing
ago.
how quickly it's all
I
come
know,
up.
right?
But to look at that and say, if we were healthy, we're probably hoisting a championship trophy right now. If we
Yeah.
were even reasonably healthy, even if we had two of our guys healthy, I think they get past the Milwaukee Bucks, and I think they would be the reigning champions right now.
And yet, that's why we play the games, right?
Absolutely.
Because stuff happens. Things happen and guys miss time. So, uh, another big man in the
Another big,
news.
Clint Capella, 2-year deal with the Atlanta Hawks, gets an extension, 2 years, $46 million. Came over to Atlanta from the Houston Rockets when they were trying to make room for Russell Westbrook. That feels like a lifetime ago, but it really wasn't all that long ago to be able to get to the basket. They didn't want to run a traditional center anymore, and so he got traded over to the Atlanta Hawks and seems to have found a home there. And now he's going to be there for a little while. 2 years, 46 million for Capella, pretty good deal. And the Hawks are looking dangerous as ever.
Yeah, they really are, and they were going to be really good this year anyway. I think it's Capella and Collins and Trey Young, of course,
Mm-hmm.
as the team leader, but they've got really good depth. They might actually have a guy or two too many
Yeah,
at this point, especially with guys like DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish coming back from
they'll have
injuries.
some decisions to
It
make when those rookie contracts start to get towards
Yeah,
the end.
yeah, and it's going to be a difficult conversation for Nate McMillan to
Mm-hmm.
have, I think, on a nightly basis, because someone's just not going to play, and when they're all healthy, and this is different than like the Lakers or the Nets, who we just talked about, because they're not filled with a whole bunch of towards the end of their career veteran guys
Right.
who it's a little easier to say, hey, we really need you to sit out. The other thing that's very interesting about this is now they committed the big money to Collins and his extension this year, as he got about, let's call it, an average of 25 million a year for the next 5 seasons. And then of course Trey Young, and if Young makes all NBA, he'll qualify for the designated rookie Rose rule, which is going to bump him up to that second tier. So he'll be with Luka on the $207 million
Mm-hmm.
5-year contract. But beyond those two, it was like, well, they don't have a ton of definite money on the books, and now they do. Now you've got 22 million for Capella in 23-24, and then 23.7 million in 24-25. So the Hawks are going to be capped out for a while, but they have nice transitional pieces that they can do some stuff with if they need to go a different direction or add something else, or find that they're missing some other player,
Mm-hmm.
or have a hole on the roster. They've, like we said, they might have too many guys. Well, then you've got that also means you've got a whole bunch of trade pieces that you can work with as well. So very interesting team, not only this coming season to see, because now they're the hunter a little bit, right? They're not the hunted anymore.
The
Now
DeAndre
everybody
Hunter?
knows you're coming. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well done. So they yeah, maybe they'll put a Herder, Kevin Herder on some teams.
Oh.
So yeah, that was a stretch. That was a reach. I went way up here for that one. Um, but it's yeah, it's yeah, we'll see. But it's going to be interesting to see how not only this year dealing with success plays out, but then what happens in the future with this team because they're set up to do some stuff.
Yeah, they certainly are. And look, they had the most success we've seen in a long time last season. So now they're ready to continue that forward. And like you mentioned, in terms of flexibility, it's not just that they've got movable pieces. They've got movable pieces that people are going to want, right? When we look at a
Yes.
young players, we talk about Herter, we talk about DeAndre Hunter, you talk about Cam Reddish. What is it every team in the NBA is looking for? Wings who can shoot. And they've got those. You
Yep.
can say they've got too many of them, but that's fine. If you've got too many of them, they're still in high demand. You're going to get top dollar out on the trade market, assuming nothing crazy goes on. And then you still have guys like Gallinari. You've got Bogdanovich, right? You've got these other pieces that fit in pretty well. So I like the position the Hawks are in right now, even if it might not be a complete picture at the moment. I think they are in good position, and come the trade deadline, they could be a team to watch to make a move to try to really push themselves over the top, or at least put them up into that top tier in the Eastern Conference, because I don't think they're quite there yet.
Yeah, and they've got Gallinari's pseudo expiring
Mm-hmm.
contract because he's only guaranteed for 5 million next year. That's so that would be 20 million in trade that they could use this year. So that becomes really interesting if it was like, we feel pretty good about what we have here. And then yeah, you mentioned, and the nice thing is they've drafted some of those guys high too, so they're carrying a little bit higher rookie scale numbers than we normally think of. So, you could even look at it and say, we've got Capella now for the next couple of years. Do we want to move in Onyeka Kongwu? Do we want to package him and Cam Reddish together? And that's 10 plus million in matching salary. And then we've got DeLon Wright and Lou Williams and Gorgie Jang. I mean, they can get to whatever number they need to get to make a trade. So, yeah, Atlanta, they're going to be really good one way or another. And as I think you were alluding to, they're well positioned to fill any holes that they have.
Absolutely. Speaking of, you mentioned the Lakers earlier, the Mavericks taking a page out of the Lakers playbook. They worked out Isaiah Thomas, Monte Ellis, and Lance Stevenson. Blast from the past, all work out for the Dallas Mavericks, guys who are trying to get back into the NBA. You know what? Isaiah Thomas actually got some pretty high reviews from his Lakers
Yeah.
workout, and the word was that he was
And the
going to
same
be
out of
the
the Mavs.
guy. Yeah, he was going to be the guy that was the Lakers were going to sign, and then Rondo got bought out. And so they decided to go in that direction. But IT has been getting good reviews there. Monte Ellis has it all. So, I mean, he could be a fit there for the Mavericks. This is interesting. I am kind of hoping for Lance Stevenson because I think the NBA needs more three guitar in its life. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about veteran players trying to come back with some of these teams? How often does this really work out?
Yeah, not in the case of Stevenson and Ellis, not very often
Yeah.
because they've been away for a couple of years now. So I'm not entirely sure. They want to say Monte Ellis is like 36 now too,
Yeah.
so he's also getting up there, which is insane because he was always thought of as this young guard who did
Mm-hmm.
the jump right from high school back in the day, and I remember just a million conversations and questions of, I don't know if it'll work for a guard to make that jump,
Right.
and then it clearly did. He had a good long career, but yeah, Lance Stevenson, I don't know. We'll see. I think maybe Isaiah. He looked okay last year with the Pelicans, so I'm hoping he catches on. I love that guy.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite guys to watch and cover. So I'm really hoping he gets with somebody and has an actual role and is able to play. But my guess is, even if this is not an immediate thing, he at least has put himself in a position where, as long as he stays in pretty good shape, when somebody needs a point guard at some point this year, they're probably going to call him and say, "Hey, you want to come in and link up with us?" And my hope would be it's on a good team where he can actually play a role.
Yeah, and of course that would be great to see. And the Mavs, they kind of already had a reclamation project in Trey Burke, and that worked out for them.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
The
never
weird
know
thing
here.
is, right, they still have Trey Burke and they have
Yeah,
Jalen Brunson and Luca's
right.
their main guy. So I'm not entirely sure that there's, a fit there, but it doesn't hurt to do this, right? This is why you bring these guys in, just see,
Hmm.
because maybe a month from now you don't have one of those guys for some reason, and then you're kind of looking for a guard, and at least you've already touched base and you've seen them in person, and you're not having to scramble to do it last minute.
Another blast from the past. Kind of not. He's still not that old. Dennis Smith Jr. landing
Yeah,
with the Blazers. I remember at one point thinking, okay, Dennis Smith Jr., this is going to be the guy to come out of this draft. I want to say he was the ninth pick or something like that. And we
yeah.
thought he is so ready, NBA ready, and just didn't really work out. But now he's catching on with the Blazers, looks like.
Never got better for Dennis Smith Jr. than it did at Summer League that first year,
Yeah.
because he came out and you could tell he was going at everybody who had been picked before him, and he was gonna take them out. And I remember talking to some folks with Dallas, and I was sitting next to a Dallas scout, and he came out and he's like, look at him, and he had this look in his eyes like, I'm gonna wreck this guy
Right.
who's playing across from me. And it was, and then he proceeded to do it, and they were so excited, and they felt like they gave up something pretty important when they traded him to get Kristaps Porzingis, but never worked out for him in New York. He actually didn't play bad for the Pistons. I thought he was kind of okay, but you always got to wonder, late season, terrible team. What does that do? I don't know what his role would be in Portland, if he can even make that team out of camp. They don't have a G League team, so this isn't a signing that's designed to get him to their G League team. So I'm not sure. My guess is he's going to have to log some G League time because overseas opportunities have dried up a little bit now,
Yeah.
late in the game here, as the NBA offseason gets started later. So, yeah, my guess is we see him probably in the G League, and he is working his way back to try to get back to the NBA, because we're kind of running into, I put this on Twitter, we're running in the last chance saloon for him.
Yeah. Yeah, that does appear to be where things are at right now. A couple of two-way contracts. Marcus Garrett, Ja'Quari McLaughlin to the Miami Heat. Um, I mean, they're kind of
Garrett
rounding
to
out
the
things there.
Heat, McLaughlin to the Mavericks.
Oh, McLaughlin was to the Mavericks. I had
Yeah.
that wrong. Okay.
Well,
Eh,
I threw that note at you about 2 seconds before we
yeah,
started
that's right.
recording, so that's on me.
I put them both
Um,
down to the Heat. But to be honest, those could be creative characters, Keith. You could be messing with me right now in terms of
could
those
be, but
names.
I'm not. I'm not. I promise. Marcus Garrett showed up in summer league as a defender. He's a big guard. He's about probably real size. He's probably 6'4", 6'5".
Hmm.
If he has a primary ball handler, that's great size. He can really defend. He's got pretty good on ball defense. Shot didn't look all that good in summer league, so we'll see. He shot it well his senior year at Kansas, but that's 1 year that he shot it well. And then McLaughlin was a big time scorer. I want to say UC Santa Barbara, maybe, if I remember correctly. I'm gonna look just because I don't like to get things wrong. But yeah, he was a big time scorer in college. So we'll see. He played for the Warriors, UC Santa Barbara. I was correct. He played for the Warriors at summer league. So we'll see what he can do for Dallas as a two-way player. So that's what we're in right now. Millsap's
Yeah.
off the board now, so there's a couple other interesting veterans. James Ennis, Avery Bradley are still
Yeah.
out there, but it's pretty much dried up at this point. So you're going to see over the next 2-3 weeks, you're going to see a flood of camp signings as teams are bringing guys in for camp. A lot of these guys will get maybe up to 50,000 guaranteed, because that's the most you can give a player in a guarantee, and then still have them play for your G League team. So we're going to see a lot of that, and then you're going to see teams fill out their two-way spots for the most part. We're down to I don't think we've talked this, but it's tweaked a little bit now. But there's
Hmm.
only two teams: Phoenix and Portland are the only two teams who don't have their own G League team
Right.
at
Which is
this
great.
point, because Denver picked up the former Detroit team, as Detroit kind of created a new team to be their team. So yeah, so they're so yeah, and then this year, barring everything going the way it's supposed to, the G League will add the Mexico City team this year, but they're unaffiliated, so they don't have an affiliate team. I'm not quite sure why Phoenix doesn't just jump on that and work
Yeah, that would
with
make
them,
sense.
but they're not. But Phoenix actually sold their team to Detroit, which is how Detroit now has a team. So there's your G League update there. But yeah, it's one of those things where Adam Silver has said multiple times he wants all 30 teams to have a G League team, have an affiliate, and then of course we have the Ignite. We'll be
Right.
back, and it sounds like they're gonna. In the bubble, they played just like everybody else did. It sounds like they will go back to what it was supposed to be, which is them playing a. They'll play sometimes against the G League teams, but it won't be games that count on
Right.
the G League schedule. And then a new team in Birmingham as well. That's the Pelicans. And go check out they're the Birmingham Squadron, which is
That's
super
right.
cool because it's a
Mm-hmm.
squadron of Pelicans, and it's also to honor the Tuskegee Airmen
Mm-hmm.
from the general vicinity over there. So I think that's super cool. Really cool logos too. They did the is it called a fleur de lis? I think is how you
Totally.
say
Yep.
that.
That's it.
They did it, but it's airplanes flying out of like the like curves and the
Yeah.
points, which is pretty cool. So yeah, so go check those out. So that's a little bit on the G League there as we try to be conscious and cover everything.
Very cool. I'll definitely have to check that out. It would be great to see all 30 teams actually have a G League affiliate
Uh-huh.
squad because, look, this is at first you could question like, okay, does having a G League team really help you? But it feels like as time has gone on, it's become more and more impactful. We're seeing more and more
Yep.
players who are fighting their way up from the G League. It's becoming more of what it was intended to be in terms of a farm system for the NBA, which is great. You can get guys
Yep.
in, develop talent, and if you can find a guy that comes up through your G League program, well, for a team that might be capped out, that can be a diamond in the rough that you find. That can be a major piece. Even for teams that aren't capped out, this gives you an opportunity
Yep.
to add somebody into your program that can come in and help you. Now, nobody's found a star out of the G League or anything like that just yet, but someday it might happen. So I think it's very cool
And
that that's
and
all set up.
teams are using them now. How Major League Baseball uses their
Yeah.
minor league teams for like rehab assignments, especially teams like the Celtics, the Lakers, and a whole bunch of others whose teams are right down the road from them, where they'll have a guy, hey, go practice with the team and see how you're looking, and maybe even playing a game or two, just to kind of get your timing and rhythm and feel back, and
Hmm.
then we'll bring you up and play with the real team. And then they also those back end of the roster guys, especially if they're younger guys who aren't seeing any time in the with the big club, they'll shuttle them down there. Especially again if they're close,
Right.
they're gonna move them back and forth with those guys. So yeah, I think it's one of those things too. I think we're going to see the G League process be a big part of the next CBA negotiations because I think we're looking at a couple things. Once we get to each team has their own affiliate, then you can do things like draft reform because there's been a lot of talk of adding another round to the draft. Then you could even do it where third round picks have to play in the G League for X amount of time or something along those lines and those kind of things. And I think that's where they'll do more linking of where maybe you're able to call players up and send players down, potentially a little bit more like Major League Baseball does it, where it feels like there's more of a connection. Because right now it's the couple two-way players and maybe a guy or two on assignment that you feel like, all right, hey, they're playing for the South Bay Lakers. We feel like they're real Lakers because they're here.
Right.
But then everybody else is an NBA free agent that's just playing for that G League team, and they can be signed by anybody. So it's going to be really kind of cool to see what this looks like. Of let's see how does this look? How do we expand this? One of the things I was also told, just as an aside, if we remember prior to this past season, you could only have 13 active players per night on your roster, and you
Yeah.
had to have at least 14 or 4 inactive players of your 17-man roster, assuming your roster was completely full. This past year, they went up to 15. It was only 2 inactive players because they were trying to help everybody out with COVID and
Right.
all those
Just
other
increased
things that
flexibility.
happened. There's a push from the coaches. They want it to be 15. They want it to stay at 15 active players, and that's so it's going to be curious to see how that goes. I've always looked at it as if they're on the roster, why can't they
Why not?
play?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't, I've never, and now I'm not saying if a guy's hurt, you should get extra roster spots because, 17 guys available on a basketball team is more than enough. But yeah, and I've always, just as an aside, I've always felt the same thing with the NFL. It's kind of, why are we making guys inactive just
Yeah.
because? Like, I've never really fully understood the reasoning why we need to continue to do that. But just a little tidbit there that I've heard from some places that from the team side, they're pushing to have the players active. And of course, the players don't, they would prefer to be active because it's a chance to play
Yeah.
versus, if you're a healthy team and you're the 15th guy on the roster, you're not going to be active most nights. You're going to be sitting on the bench and in a shirt and tie and hanging out watching the game. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes too much sense to just keep it that
yeah.
way. It's kind of like, so coaches not having to wear suits on the sideline, right? Where
Yes.
last season, like, I was used to that right
Yeah.
away. It was
That's
not a big
fine.
deal at all. And if I was a coach, I would be much more comfortable. I mean, some coaches, hey, if you want to wear a suit, wear a suit. But for some
Yeah.
coaches, they were clearly more comfortable just wearing whatever they were allowed to wear, was a polo or, that type of stuff.
Honestly,
So
I liked it because I thought most of the teams too, the whole coaching staff wore the same thing.
yeah, yep,
So like it was like they were like I don't want to say they were in a uniform, but there was uniformity to them, and you could really, all right, there it is, and we're going back to now. They talked about how the benches aren't going to be quite as spread out, which
hmm
we knew that was coming. That's some valuable real estate there,
yes.
courtside, for ticket sales, but we knew that was coming. But yeah, it's going to be, yeah, keep the polo thing. It's as long as we don't go so far that they're in a uniform like Major League
No,
Baseball
let's
does,
not do that.
because that would be dumb. But and it's funny because there was actually an article this week on, I can't remember where I saw it, but it was about Major League Baseball and how some of the younger managers, they
Mhm.
don't, they might wear the uniform bottoms, the pants, but they don't wear the like jersey anymore. They wear like a sweatshirt or a jacket or
Right.
something like that instead. So that's yeah, I mean that's and I've never understood that in baseball. Why does the big fat manager like me need to be in the uniform that's overly tight and he looks kind of goofy?
It's one of those things, and whether it's baseball, whether it's NBA, and we're talking about 15 players being available to play, or whether it's what the coach wears, it's one of those things that kind of falls in that category of, well, it is that way because it's always been that way.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
just takes somebody to stop and say, wait, why? Why are we doing this way? Why wouldn't it be better to do it this way for everybody to realize, hey, yeah, that actually would probably be better. So I would
In
like
my
to see
former
15 active.
corporate life, I had a rule for every team that worked with me that was, if your answer is because that's how we've always done it, that's not a good enough answer.
No.
The right answer may be to continue to do the way we've always done it, but that can't be the reason why. So yeah, so anytime that's what we hear, I tend to go the other way on that one. Almost just out of gut, reaction of it. It almost kind of makes me cringe, and then I'm like, yeah, let's go a different direction. But yeah, it's gonna be fun, and there's a whole bunch of stuff we're not gonna get into it here, but things that'll come up about vaccinated players and what they
Oh,
can
yeah.
and can't do, and
Already started to see
both of
stuff come
the
out.
yeah, and both of the New York teams and the Warriors in San Francisco, because of local regulations, players are not allowed in the building if they're not vaccinated.
hmm
So that's going to be very, very interesting to see how that is handled. And again, that's not a, I don't know that the NBA has the power to supersede that because those are government, local government regulations. So that's going to be really curious to see where this goes. And that's the NBA's already come out. All the referees must be
hmm
vaccinated. All anybody basically who's like on the floor, like as part of the game, that's a non-player, will need to be there as well, or have to have prior exclusion reasons and those kind of things. So, we'll just something to keep an eye on that we'll all be kind of watching here as the season gets cranked up. We're less than 4 weeks from training camps opening. We are
That's right.
26 days
Let's
away.
go. Let's go. I'm ready. I'm ready for it. We've got football 1 week from today. We've got the NBA season coming back just right around the corner.
World Cup
Let's
qualifier
go.
tonight for the
That's
U.S.
right.
men's
World Cup
national
qualifier
team.
tonight.
Yeah.
I've got a live show to do tonight for Lakers Nation. I've
Oh,
got a fantasy football draft, and at the same time, I'm going to have the World Cup qualifier on. I wish Kristen Pulisic was playing, but whatever. As long as they get in and get it done.
When they're back at home.
Yep.
It sounds like he's gonna go. So yeah.
All right,
that's
everybody.
that's where our fandom intersects.
Yes, that's right.
That's the one team I think we might be fans of together. So
we'll both be pulling for them.
Go USA.
That's right. That's right. All right, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. The NBA season, like Keith said, right around the corner. Let's go. Let's get fired up for that. We're going to be coming at you with plenty of content, especially once the season starts up. Instead of like every other day, you're going to be getting this show every single day pretty much once the season starts up. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you are subscribed. Don't forget to turn on those notifications as well. And of course, make sure you like this video. Till next time, everybody, stay safe and see you.